Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Level Up Your Business Online Summit. My name is Gillian Hill. I wish I was in a coffee shop right now, unfortunately not, so the virtual screen is the best that we're going to get today. There are four of us that are going to give you some presentations for the next hour. That means we all have to keep it relatively short. So I'm going to ask that if anyone has any questions, they put them in the chat, and we will catch those up at the end as we move presenter to presenter. Also, for anyone who comes in late or doesn't think about their questions until after the fact, then please feel free to email any one of us directly or email through the link that you subscribed on, and I can make sure that the questions get to whoever they need to go to. We're going to keep everybody muted right now except for the speakers so we can concentrate on what's happening as each person presents. And so first of all, I'm going to ask Jen Patterson to talk. Jen is a money coach for entrepreneurs with over 15 years of experience in personal finance. Her goal is to help you create a better relationship with your money. She has a unique system that anybody can implement into their life and business, whether or not they consider themselves good with money. By diving into the habits that drive our financial success, or lack thereof, Jen is able to pinpoint where you are going wrong and put you on the right path towards serious financial freedom. So Jen is going to give us a presentation on managing money the smart way. Over to you, Jen.
Thank you so much. And don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to mute you now. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to try and get through as much as I possibly can in our very, very short period of time. And the way that we're going to be doing this is I'm going to kind of start off and give you guys an outline of kind of talk about the value of your time and how to calculate when it is appropriate to start bringing on contractors like all the lovely ladies that are going to be talking today. And then I'm also going to finish up our presentation at the end of the day talking about how to find the dollars to hire all of these fabulous women. So I'm going to start off quickly by sharing a little screen. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this without accidentally closing the entire thing. There we go. Okay. So we're going to share, hit share. And slideshow. So we're going to be talking about your value. So when we talk about your own value, a lot of entrepreneurs in the beginning stages, you're the one and only. You're the person that's got to get every single thing done, and you also feel very protective of your business. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they sort of feel like it's their baby and they want to do everything themselves because they feel like, you know, I'm the only one who can do it right. If you want to do something right, you got to do it yourself. It's also very much a mom thing, I find too. But there comes a point when the things that you are good at don't necessarily align with all of the other things that go along with running a business. So you need to start bringing on team members if you want to grow, because we only have 24 hours a day. We only have so much mental capacity before things run out. So you gotta hire the people if you want to grow. So how much is your time actually worth? And I really want you to think about the numbers. I know numbers scare a lot of people, but it comes down to it, you gotta think about the numbers. So how much time are you actually spending on a task like copywriting or, you know, trying to do your graphics or your logo and your branding? How much time are you spending on that? I use bookkeeping because it's one that everybody has to deal with. So has it taken you 2 to 3 hours a week to maintain your books? Here comes some math. I promise it's going to be easy. No big scary calculations for you. Let's pretend for a minute that you charge your client $75 an hour to work your magic. I'm just going to move the screen because I can't actually see my PowerPoint. There we go. Now, if you're spending 2 to 3 hours a week banging your head against a wall trying to get your books done, is that a good use of your time? Probably not. You're probably losing money in that time that you could be serving your clients and bringing in new business, but instead you're banging your head against a wall trying to do your books. So that's, you know, $150 to $225 a week that you're costing yourself in lost revenue. So what does an average bookkeeper charge? Most of them charge between $25 and $50 an hour. And guess what? they're going to be good at it. They're going to love doing it. They're going to be a lot faster than you are. So they're probably going to be able to get it done in a heck of a lot less time and grow a heck of a lot less gray hair while they're doing it. So you're saving yourself $50 to $175 every single week. Like, that adds up a lot. I mean, these are just numbers that I've pulled out of the sky. So, you know, think about your own situation and what is that going to be doing for you and your business? How much money are you going to be able to grow if you take away those hours in the week where you're doing tasks that you absolutely detest? I mean, this can be anything. It can be your social media. It can be dealing with, you know, your website. It can be so many different things. I'm like drawing a blank here on all of the different tasks because there is such an endless list. But the point I'm trying to drive home here is that you've got to think about that time, think about how much you're wasting, and utilize the professionals that are out there. There are people that do the things that you hate, and they're better at it, and they're going to support you and help your business grow. Now, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be talking a lot more specifically with the numbers that it would take to hire the amazing women that are going to speak after me. So I'm going to stop talking now and pass it back to Jill and let her introduce those amazing women.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. I think that's very useful, and I think that's definitely something that people who are moving from wearing all the hats to realizing that they need to make the next step forward don't always appreciate, is that the time saving is actually a money saving for them. So that was great. Thank you. So our next presentation is going to be by Maria Platusik. Did I say your name correctly, Maria? Yep, excellent. Maria is a seasoned branding designer and business strategist who works with established small businesses and helps them with branding and website overwhelm. Those owners that are thinking about leveling up their business but feel stuck. She dives deeper into your branding efforts and guides you to get unstuck by creating a strategy that is in alignment with your future business goals and by developing a beautiful and intentional brand to achieve those goals. Over to you, Maria.
There we go. Can you guys hear me? Yes? Okay. Thank you, Jillian. Hello, everyone. And thank you for organizing all of this. I'm very excited to chat with you guys today. As Jillian mentioned, so I have been in the industry about 20 plus years now and working at agencies all across the Toronto GTA area, helping, Fortune 500 companies develop brands and logos and establish those brands and logos with supporting marketing collateral. The past 10 years, I've been helping entrepreneurs such as yourself create those brand foundations and the importance of having a solid brand foundation. Today, I'm going to be chatting about the 3 top reasons why your business and brand, it might be time to level up and time to rebrand your business. So the top 3 signs are, the first one is something that a lot don't like to admit to, but it is that you may be embarrassed or shy to send people to your website or hand out your business card because you feel that your brand is possibly looking unprofessional, that it just simply doesn't light you up anymore, that you are looking to kind of not showcase it, but you want yourself to come up more forward than highlighting the brand that's not representing you best. And there's a lot of overlap here when discussing this. But the second item is that you've outgrown your brand. And you can outgrow your brand in a lot of ways. The first way is if your target audience has shifted or changed over time. So if you have, a target audience when you initially started that was, say, 20 to 30-year-old moms that were kind of doing a hobby for their business, but now your audience is 30 to 40-year-olds who are kind of professional business executives, you basically have shifted your target audience at that time. So that's kind of one of the signs to see that it's time to rebrand. The other sign that you can see if your product or service that you offer has pivoted. So when you started off, let's say you're handling social media, but now this is something you don't remotely do at all, but your branding is still kind of holding on to the portions of the social media that you did offer previous. that's another sign that if your product or service that you're offering has changed, that you need to kind of take a look at your branding efforts and see what needs to be done. The other sign that you've outgrown your brand is that you're currently not attracting the target audience anymore. That particular, you're attracting the wrong target audience. So the audience where you initially started, let's say you were a florist and you started off with budget weddings and the lower, smaller scale. And now you are trying to seek the higher end, more luxury style weddings. And you're not attracting the ideal client avatar you're trying to attract. So that's another sign that you've outgrown your business. The third and final item and sign that shows that you're ready for a rebrand is, it's again overlapping, but it's one of those things that, you know, when you have a business or brand and your logo and website and everything is not representing you best. It's not reflecting your 15+ years experience in the background, your 25+ years as a legal advisor, or you're an online business manager that's been doing this for 22 years, but your logo is not representing you in the way that it should. You're basically being hidden behind a brand that's not showcasing your talents. And that's a big one. And I find a lot of people, you know, they've had a logo or brand that worked at the beginning. It may have worked at the beginning, but now as time goes on, they're not necessarily being reflected by that brand. So that's one of the main items there that you need to take a look at. So I have a couple questions that you can kind of ask yourself and see if this, you know, is something that you want to do. The first question is, if you were to look at your brand and your business, and would you say that it's allowing you to compete at the level that you want to compete at? Are you able to perform and compete and play at the level that you want to play at when you take a look at your logo and branding? The next item is it attracting that ideal client avatar, that audience that you want to attract? That's the next question you want to ask yourself as well. And if you're answering no to a lot of these, or you're noticing a lot of these signs that it's time to possibly take a more in-depth approach or a deeper dive into your business, then this is one thing I can assist you with. What I am offering, especially for those who've come to the live or will be catching the replay, is free mini branding audits. And what I will do is I'll take a closer look into your branding efforts and see how your logo is adding up and how your current efforts are working. And if there's something that's in misalignment, we will take a closer dive into it and see what we can do to tweak it or adjust it, or possibly take a look if you're ready for a rebrand. And that's a more one-on-one approach. I do have a link. I think Jillian can maybe pop it in there. I can pop it in the comments too, and she'll also forward it to you via the email. But it's at my website, platusicdesign.com/mini-branding-audits. And then the other item, if you're more of I still want to kind of do it myself and figure it out myself, I do have a freebie, and it's basically a free guide and checklist to see how effective your logo is at attracting your ideal audience. And that's also at platusicdesign.com. It's on my footer, and you just got to sign up for that. And there's 6 steps that you go through and a checklist that you go through to make sure that you are, you know, to see how your logo is adding up and to see how effective it really is. And then if you have any questions beyond that, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer them for you. And if you wanted to see my behind the scenes, I offer a lot of video tips and whatnot. You can check out my social media at Platusic Design. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope this was helpful to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Yep, that was very helpful. And as someone who deals with the copywriting side of things, showcasing your business is definitely something that I think about with the words, and I can see why doing that with your logo as well is a great way to help. I was wondering, as a question, are people sometimes concerned that they leave the old clients who are actually providing some money to them just now behind when they upgrade their logo, and that they might lose out as they move up into the next level of their business? Is that a concern that your clients have?
If they change the level or the target audience that they're trying to, okay. So that is a concern. It has happened. One of my clients, she was a cake artist, and she started off at the lower end scale, and she wanted to hit the luxury end, and she was looking for, you know, instead of doing 10 cakes, she wanted to do 1 cake in comparison. And that was a concern of hers. And then I had to ask her the tough questions of, well, do you want to serve the lower end, or do you want to serve the higher end, right? So you have to ask yourself those questions. And if that was the case, I would, you know, position you up here already so that you would grow into this brand and be attractive to those higher end budgets. But, you know, make no mistake, if we position you on the lower end, the higher end people would not be looking at your brand because it's not attractive to them in their right mind. But when you are at the higher level, it doesn't mean you're going to scare off everybody else and you're not going to get your referrals. You will still have that name and those core values and that audience. It's just a matter of the new audience finding you attractive now and paying attention to you more, because now your messaging, your branding, your everything is in alignment with that new target audience.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you.
Next we're going on to our next presenter is Laura Bowder. Did I say your name correctly, Laura?
Yes, you did.
2 for 2, fantastic. It was a little easier to say. So. Laura is a podcast strategist for ambitious female entrepreneurs. She guides her clients as they go from big picture visions to launching and growing successful podcasts that increase their visibility, brand authority, and know, like, trust factor. Laura loves to remove the overwhelm from her clients so they can share their impactful message and achieve their business goals. She assists with podcast production, actionable workflow, and accountability. Over to you, Laura.
Okay, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here because I put together a few slides that will help me organize myself and give you guys hopefully some interesting things to look at. So I'm going to pull that up here, and we're going to talk about visibility, if it'll let me. Okay, so I might have to stop sharing for a second and figure that out, but we're going to talk about visibility, and I'm going to try to pull up the presentation before I share. And basically, one of the first things to keep in mind, because, you know, as entrepreneurs, we know how important visibility is. We need to make sure that we're getting in front of our clients, people who are interested in what we're doing and what we have to say. So, okay, I have it pulled up here. I'm going to see if it will work. If it won't, I will just go on without it, and I'll maybe send it out in the link. Okay, so we'll do it this way. So when we're thinking of visibility, this is something that I talk to people a lot in my group, in other Facebook groups, with clients that I have. When you think of visibility, what do you think about? And people are telling me, I want to be seen by the right people. I want to be in front of my ideal client. I want to engage with my dream clients. And I want to show up to help as many people as I can. So these are all things that, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking of as far as how are you going to get in front of your target audience and how can you serve them. So specifically, since I work with entrepreneurs who want to launch or grow a successful podcast and really get themselves out there in front of their audience in that way, I'm going to talk about the benefits of leveling up your business through podcasting. Why is podcasting such a great marketing tool if you are looking to extend your reach? So first of all, it is something that is really helpful for your brand authority. It's super effective in helping you to connect with your audience and grow your audience, because people are more willing to follow, they're more willing to buy from people who they know, like, and trust. And this is something that you do build over time just by being in front of your ideal audience through social media or through just having your link out there or doing some networking in Facebook groups, that kind of thing that we all do on kind of a daily basis to stay visible. But podcasting is kind of a different ballgame because it gets you literally in your client's head because they're listening to you, right? And you're on their headphones. And so they feel like you're talking just to them. You're talking to them, you're reading their minds in some cases. So those are all really helpful things as far as your know, like, and trust factor. It really accelerates that process. They feel like they know you and you guys are friends because you talk all the time. So if you're wondering how many podcasts there are over 1 million podcasts right now. So, and this has actually jumped significantly just in the last month or so with the quarantine. So this is a new stat that came out just this month in April. They had their biggest expansion ever in podcasts this past 30 days. So it's definitely an expanding platform and people are listening, but it is still underutilized in marketing strategies. So for those of you who aren't convinced by the know, like, trust, warm fuzzies, here's some numbers for you. 32% of the US population listen to podcasts at least monthly. So that's 150 million people. 22% listen to podcasts weekly. So that's still over 100 million people that are listening to podcasts. 67% of those listeners fall between the ages of 18 and 44. So for most of us, that's our target audience. They're all in there in that 67%. And 45% of podcast listeners podcast listeners are 45% more likely than average to have a household income of over $250,000. And there are still, some stats below that in terms of how many of them have a household income over $100,000, how many of them have a household income that's higher than the median income in the United States. So they tend to be, on average, a more affluent group of people, and they tend to be higher, have a more higher education as well. So these are people who are in tune with you, and they have the means and the interest to buy from you. Lastly, 80% of podcast listeners listen to an entire podcast episode or at least a significant portion of it. So these are not people who will tune out on you. If they have decided that you are worth subscribing to, they're going to listen to what you have to say. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, the best tips that I can give you in terms of using this as a way to increase your visibility is, first of all, to focus on your content. Make sure that you're creating content that your target audience wants to listen to. Make sure you're answering their questions or solving their problems. And whether you can do that by maybe taking your audience that you already have on social media and putting some polls out for them, asking for their feedback as far as what they would like to hear from you. All of those things are really helpful. Another piece that I think a lot of people get hung up on with podcasting is the tech side of it. They think about, am I going to have the right microphone? How am I going to actually upload these episodes and get them to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those places? And of course, I don't have time today to do an entire training on those things, but I do want to reassure you that the technology is not as complicated as people think. Production of a podcast is time consuming, and that's something that Jen talked about a little bit at the beginning, and she's going to really drive home for us at the end as well. That podcasting is super effective, but it can be time consuming. Not necessarily difficult, but it's definitely going to be some of those hours that you could be using in other ways. So that would be the part that comes along with the podcast production. And then you also want to consider your show format. There are some people who want to just do what we call a solo cast. They want to just get in front of the mic. They want to record something that's just them. They want to do it for their audience and put it out there and then move on. Others really want to bring in other experts that can add value to their show for interviews, and that's a great way to network and a great way to kind of get your name out there and become more visible as well, because then hopefully they will promote the episode to their audience too. So just depending on what you're wanting to share, what your target audience is like, really think about what would be better, or if you want to do a mix and do some episodes that are just you and some episodes where you're bringing other people on. And I also wanted to throw in here really quickly for visibility that even if you're thinking, I don't have time to do a podcast of my own right now, or it's not something I'm interested in as far as hosting a show or having to be accountable to put one out every week or every other week, I would still urge you to consider finding ways to guest on other podcasts that have target audiences that are aligned with or similar to yours. I would not miss out on all of those great stats that I showed you. And then this is a quote from Rick Mulready. If you're looking to grow your brand and position yourself as a thought leader, not to mention grow your email list and sell more of your stuff, one of the very best ways is to be a guest on podcasts. And it's for all the reasons that I mentioned. And a lot of people love to be guests on podcasts because it doesn't come with all of the responsibility of hosting your own show, but you do still get in front of other audiences. And yes, that's a big positive for you. My advice would be to also make sure that having you on their show is a positive for the host as well. So make sure that you have something to share that's worthwhile to their audience. Make sure that you are promoting the show, because that's a big part of networking and using podcasts for visibility. So yeah, make sure that you're doing that. This is my contact information. And that will, I think, go out in the email as well, but I would love to talk to you guys if you have any questions about visibility or using podcasts specifically, or starting a podcast. I love to talk through the strategy of that. And something that I will be doing in my Facebook group next week is I'll be doing some different trainings on visibility, how maybe a little more detail, since I couldn't really go into it today, on how to start a podcast. And I'm also going to be having a few different people in who have expertise outside of what I am most familiar with to talk about visibility as well, because I just think that it's a really important part of leveling up your business. Once you are comfortable in what you do and what you offer, making sure that you are really getting out there in different ways is super important. So I would like to thank you all for listening today, and please feel free to reach out with any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Laura. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Laura. That was fantastic. We have a question in the chat. It's actually for everyone, but I will ask it to you just now.
Sure.
We'll catch everybody else up as they go, and I'll catch Maria at the end. What are some of the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make early on that could be avoided with your guidance? So is there something that you wish people had come and asked you first before they jumped into the podcasting?
Yes, that's a great question. I will say that I talk to a lot of people, when they reach out to me and talk about their podcast, a lot of them have already started in various ways, and they'll come to me and they'll already have a title, or they'll already have, podcast cover art, and it won't necessarily be something that would be optimizing what they're going for with their target audience. A lot of times people will have titles that sound really great, or there's some kind of pun going on, like they're really cute titles, but they're not searchable. If people are looking for a certain thing that they're offering, people won't search that to find it. So that's something that I've noticed recently. And then another thing I would say, for mistakes that they make early on that could be avoided, I think would be people often expect that they're going to start a podcast and it's going to immediately be profitable for them or their business, and they get frustrated when it's not immediately that way. And so I think it's important to think of it as more of a long game strategy. Like I said, it does accelerate the know, like, and trust, but it's going to still take some time for people to make that leap with you, and it takes a little bit of time to build an audience before you're going to see a financial return on investment strictly from the podcast. And so to think of it more as your return on investment, especially at the beginning for podcasting, is just going to be building your community and building your know, like, trust.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Laura. Now it's my turn. So I shall tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a copywriter and editor. I used to be a corporate real estate attorney in Scotland over 10 years ago. And then my husband and I moved to the States, moved around a lot, started a family, got our green cards after we had started a family, moved around some more. And eventually, once we settled in and I was ready to start a business, I realized that while I loved communicating what my clients wanted, it didn't have to be done through stuffy contracts anymore. And I enjoy the creativity that comes with copywriting and editing from a marketing point of view, rather than from a contract point of view. So today I'm going to be talking to you about content editing and batching like a pro. I would say that the reason I say like a pro is because hardly anybody batches to begin with. Creating your own content, even when you're a content creator like me, is hard, and it often goes to the end of the to-do list. And when that happens, you end up often doing it right on your deadline. So if you've agreed with yourself that you're going to produce a blog post every week on a Tuesday, Monday night comes and you're scrabbling around. I mean, I imagine it might be similar to this with podcasting, Laura, or your social media content, you're rushing to get it out. And there's a number of problems with doing that. One is that you don't always look that professional. There can be typos and mistakes. I would say you're also probably not looking as professional because you're probably pulling together images and graphics at the last minute and not really giving it the time it takes. I know I definitely fell into that category. And I think the other thing is that you don't always realize just how much time you're spending on content creation, which is really important for your marketing. But you might be shocked to find out how many minutes and hours add up across your week when you join all that together. And as Jen mentioned at the beginning, is that the best use of your time when you could be using that, bringing in clients or creating products or selling your services? So I compare it a little bit to like setting up auto pay on your bills. There's some work to be done at the beginning and you often can't be bothered and you don't remember until the last minute and you think, oh, I'll set those up next month. And months to month goes by and you're left in a scrabble trying to get your bills paid. But once you set it up, you can kind of set it and forget it. With content creation, you cannot all the way. You're still going to have to be doing work every month. But you don't have that bit in paying bills where you forget and your reputation suffers because you're late. Well, if you put things out that look sloppy and maybe the branding doesn't look very cohesive, then that affects your reputation as a business. And if you're looking to level up and to start bringing in more clients so that you can afford, you're in a position where you're earning more and therefore you can pay experts, you really have to be seen as a professional in your field. And so it's okay if there's a typo here and there. I still have typos here and there, but you want it generally to look professional and on point and part of your brand. And that comes down to images and logos like Maria was talking about, but it also comes down to the language that you use and the words that you use and how you put those together and what you're talking about through your content. So there are 5 parts I want to discuss, and I could spend like an hour on each part. So I'm going to flash through these. If anyone has any questions, please let me know or contact me afterwards. The first really big picture thing is to strategize your content. Normally you only have to do this maybe once a year or once every 6 months. If you're ready to get started on batching now, you need to do it now, but you won't need to do it again for a while. And the absolute most fundamental question, and this comes in every single part of the process, is who are you writing for? And what do they need to know? So you need to understand who your ideal client is. But more than that, you need to understand your ideal audience. Your audience includes your ideal client, but they are on a journey from the very first point where they may hear about a problem or hear your name on social media, and all the way through buying and all the way to the point where they are a raving fan who's bought from you before and who tells their friends about you. All those people are part of your ideal audience. And the other thing I would say is that your content can go into buckets. And I use a know, like, trust framework, similar to what Laura mentioned. And I make sure that I have education things in the know bucket, entertainment things that make people feel like you're all part of the one tribe go in the like bucket, and trust would be testimonials, guarantees, stories about how good you've been in the community and who you've helped. Those all in the trust bucket. So you need to have both the journey process and the different buckets that you fill up. It's a complicated process. You can work it all out yourself, but if anybody needs some help with it, I'm always happy to help. The second part is your monthly content planning. So this would be a content calendar, and by which I do not mean a $29, here's your content for the year content planner. Those things can be used by anybody, and as such do not connect to their ideal clients or their ideal audience in any way. You need to figure out what you're going to talk about ideally for a month. I would set at a time. So you want to, if you're launching something or you have a product that you want to focus on, you can sometimes focus just on that one thing through the month. So for example, I write sales pages and email sequences and landing pages, and I write blog posts. But because I'm doing this online summit and because I'm launching a 5-day blog writing challenge in my Facebook group, the last few weeks I've been solely focusing on content that relates to blog writing. And the other things take a back seat, and next month or the month after, I'll go back to those areas of the content. So once you've figured out the social media channels that you want to focus on, how often you want to post, and also your own blog on your own website, then you can start to figure out how many things you need to post in the month. I would always suggest that you have your own website blog as well as posting on other social media. You can post your blog post, and then you can create something for each of your social media channels that relates to it. So you can excerpt out a paragraph and then link back to your blog. I'm sure you've all heard of the Facebook groups that randomly get shut down, or pages people are running that get closed. If you are posting on any social media channel that's not your website, then it's not your property, and something can happen to it at any point. The algorithm could change, you can lose all your audience. So much as I love posting on lots of different social media channels, I think it's really fundamental that you post on your own website. And then you spread out from there, from your blog posts on your own website to your other social media channels. So the next thing I'm going to say, which everybody hates, is write all your content at once at the beginning of the month. And nobody wants to do that. But if you set a period of time out and you write all the content that you've planned, so say it's 1 blog post a month, you're writing 4 blog posts right then. The advantage of that in some ways is that if you're finding one really hard, skip to the next one. You often get into a certain mindset when you're writing, and it can, if you're not used to it, can take a little while to get into that mindset, which is why trying to spend 20 minutes writing your blog post for tomorrow is often so hard, because it takes maybe it takes you 30 minutes till you get in the zone to start writing. I like to outline as well, like what do I want to cover? What are the 5 main points that I need to cover in this post? And then flesh each one out into a paragraph. And that often helps the writing. Don't write the first paragraph first. If you're struggling to where to start, then don't start at the start. Start in the middle with your main points and come back to that section. I also find that if you're doing the strategy and the content planning each month, the process of writing becomes much easier because you already have a goal for that content. You know who you're writing for and what it's to be about and what the goal is for you and what the goal is for your audience. And so I find that helps it go much faster. So write everything. The next stage would be to get your graphics and your images together, your logos and your branding. So this is where, from an image point of view and a visual point of view, you want to get that cohesive branding the same way that you're trying to do with your writing. So I would just give an example that if you're writing a series of blog posts, I've done this before where I found a great image that I've used, and then the next post I was thinking, oh, that was the image that really should have gone in this post, but it's too late because it's already been posted in the first one, and I had to use something that's just not quite as good as the first image would have been. So if you write them as a series, you can really think about that. What's the flow of the images as well as the writing through the different posts? Make sure everything is cohesive as you post it. The next issue is editing, and a big bonus of batching your content and writing it all at the beginning of the month is that you can give some space before you edit. So the problem is that if you've just written something and then you read it, you are reading what you meant to write because you're still in the head of you as the writer. You need to sit it in a drawer. People talk about when they write a novel, but it's kind of the same idea. You have to leave it on your laptop and come back a few days later, longer if possible. Then you are in the head of a reader and it's easier to spot the problems and the issues. And I would also say that editing is maybe 5% catching typos and grammar. That's really not as important as you would think it is. I mean, you have to do it, but there's a lot more to editing than that. You've got to look, are you really getting to the goal? A lot of people will write a kind of mumbly first paragraph and then they get into what they wanted to say. And that first paragraph should go. And then you need to write a new one after you've finished that actually talks about what's in the post. Writing your headlines almost always should come at the end after you've finished in your editing process. Again, because you want to make sure that you wrote about what you said you were going to write about. And if you didn't, you need to change your headline to make sure it matches what you said you were going to write about, or what you actually did write about. So there's a large list of things that you have to think about when you're editing. It's not just typos. Editing can be provided externally. I do editing for bloggers and it can be done on a retainer. You can have somebody else do the editing for you, like a friend, if you cannot afford to pay an editor to do that for you. I would just strongly encourage you to get someone who is not you to look at that. The slight problem of having a friend do it is that if they're in your ideal audience, that's great. But if they know what you meant to write the same way that you do, if there's a gap in what you're writing, and they know what you meant, they'll fill that gap in when they read it in their heads, and they'll not notice that you left something that wasn't completely clear to your audience. So it can be hard to find a great person to trade with, but if contracting out your editing is not feasible for you, then it's definitely worth seeing if you can find somebody where you can trade that editing process. A second set of eyes really helps. So for me, the biggest bonus of batching is you'll start to see just how many hours a week you spend on creating your content, not just creating it, but creating the images and the visuals, scheduling the posting, editing, catching any errors and sorting it all out. And you might be surprised how much that adds up. I would pretty much guarantee that if you start batching, you'll spend less hours on it than you were in all the little pockets that you were doing before. But hopefully it will provide you with an idea, and then you can say, is this worth my time? Should I be asking someone to post for me and schedule or do the social media or the graphics, or should I be having an editor look at it? Or should I be doing a content focus strategy at the beginning of each month or at the beginning of each year where I have an expert help me figure out exactly what I want to write about? And I also have an editing checklist, which is in my list of freebies. So I will, once this moves on, I will post a link to that for everybody to look at. So thank you very much. The next person who is going to talk to tie this all together for us is Jen. She is going to give us a final one. I'm not sure that I know how you're going to tie this up. I don't think I have an official title for it, Jen, so I will let you introduce it.
All right, so it doesn't have a title. It's just like, let's just dive in and tie this all together in a nice, neat little bow that, because of course, you know, life is like that and everything does all tie into a nice, neat little bow, right? All right, let's dive into my share screen again. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you are seeing my PowerPoint. Beautiful. Okay, so if you've never heard me talk before, then you probably don't know the fact that I am a big believer in the profit first system. So the profit first system, in a very general sense, is a big believer in having separate pots of money that each do different jobs. So what I find when I'm working with a lot of entrepreneurs is that when they're starting out, their expense or their revenue kind of looks a little bit like this. Hang on, I'm going to move some things around on my screen here so I can see what I'm talking about. No, maybe not. Okay, so money goes into their businesses and paying themselves a paycheck is like, whoa, too scary. That would be one of the mistakes. So that question that came up about what are some of the mistakes that entrepreneurs make in their first, you know, little bit of business, not paying themselves a paycheck from day one. Oh my gosh, that is a huge mistake. You've got to start paying your paycheck from day one. And I'm not going to derail into that, but yes, big mistake people make. They generally don't consider taxes and they put everything back into their business and all of the money just goes right there. Now, there's the other, set of entrepreneurs. Oh, this kind of got a little bit muddled. That's okay. The other set of entrepreneurs that their entire revenue goes into paying the paycheck, keeping food on the table, keeping the roof over the head, and nothing goes into anything else, and everything's just a big question mark. So what I suggest doing, if you're in that position, which most entrepreneurs fall into one of those two camps, I'm going to focus on those who are only taking money out of their businesses and putting it right onto their, kitchen tables. But it really works either way, is you start with just a minute amount of money moving into something else. And by minute, I mean like 1%. Like you just got to start small, because a lot of it is a head game. You have to get your head wrapped around the fact that, yes, you can pull money out of your, I'm going to look at the chat real quick and see if it's something that I need to, oh, it's just Jill's freebie. Okay. Not just Jill's freebie. It's very exciting. Anyway, you can pull money out of your business and still do the same level of business with less money. It's like the toothpaste tube. So when you get your toothpaste at the beginning and it's a big, plump thing of toothpaste, and you squeeze a big slob onto the toothbrush and you go to town. And then as you get further and further down your toothpaste tube and you get to the very end, and then you start twisting it and you start pushing it and you get really creative with how much toothpaste you can get out, and you use like this tiny little sliver of toothpaste and your teeth still get clean. It's the same thing with running your business and dealing with your money. If you have less that's staring you in the face in your bank account, you will find a way to do the same business with less money. You will figure it out. So if you start pulling out little tiny bits of money over time, you will find that eventually you'll have this nice pot of money sitting there that can then pay for your contractors. So let's say the first step, 5% is going to pay Jill's paycheck and 95% is going into your family or your business or whatever. So really, really piecemeal, do it over a few months. And then over time, maybe it looks a little bit like something like this. Only half your revenue is actually paying your paycheck. Dollar amount, it may be the same, but because you're able to hire all of these other pieces, your revenue dollar amount is much higher. So percentage-wise, you need a lot less of it to get by. I know that's a lot of math, so bear with me. I'm going to give you a nice pretty picture of how this could possibly work. So step one is you decide it's time to hire Jill because I need someone to help me with my copywriting. I am a hot mess of it right here, big hot mess with my copywriting. I'm a numbers girl, not a words girl. And at the time, let's say, for example, you're bringing in about $3,000 a month-ish. So 1% of that $3,000 is $30. See if you can do the same business or run your life the same way with $30 a month less. I bet you can do it. So the first month you put aside that $30. Goes great. Awesome. The second month, you put aside 2%. Pull out $60. And in month 3, you put aside $90. Okay, so adding all of that up, you've got more than enough to start hiring Jill on that retainer to help you with your editing, your copywriting, whatever that is that she can help you with. All right, so you've hired Jill. Ooh, apparently I need to work on sequencing. All right, so now that you've got Jill doing that work for you, you've got more time, you're now bringing in $4,600 a month. $100 of that pays for Jill, and now you've got an extra $1,500 that you can now hire Laura. Ooh, wow, this is terrible. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm much better at this, I swear. Okay. Wow, why is this such a hot mess? Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, so you've got $1,500 a month. You can hire Laura, you can get your podcast off the ground and start talking to your audience and build that know, like, and trust. Awesome. Step 3, your podcast is going like gangbusters. And now you're making $7,000 a month because you're bringing in all of these fabulous new people from your podcast. You've got Jill handling all of your copywriting. This is fantastic. You're doing great. It's time to level up your business. Now we hire Maria. So you can still live on that $3,000 a month. Theoretically, that has not changed. And that's where the, bringing in those different bank accounts is really going to make that doable. Because if you start siphoning $7,000 a month into your bank accounts, then you're going to find a way to spend $7,000 a month. But if you've got it siphoning elsewhere where you're not seeing it, then you're going to be able to save it effectively and actually hire all these people that are going to allow you to grow your business. So now you've got this extra money, $3,500 a month. Within a couple of months, you've got enough money to pay for Maria's package. It's just that. I mean, I know it's a very simplistic version, and in the real world, things don't happen in this really pretty way. Life happens. Things go wrong, things go sideways. We're not perfect, absolutely. But what this can do is show you the basic framework and how you can go from where you are thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to come up with the money to pay for these amazing women, to actually finding a path forward. So the first step is actually just finding that small amount of money that you can put aside. And I really do mean put it like in a different bank account. If you really have to, put it at a different bank. Like go to a different bank and open up a completely separate account that, you know, maybe you don't even have to have online access to it because, you know, you've got an itchy trigger finger. Like make it hard for yourself to get to it. And then when it comes time to sign those contracts, bring in the help, you have the cash, it's sitting there, it's ready, it's waiting. And you can go ahead and do it, and then your business is just going to grow and thrive and flourish, and that's kind of why we're all here, right? So that's my piece. That's how it all fits together in a nice, neat little bow.
Thank you very much, Jen. Well, so I have to ask you, and I'm going to come back and ask Maria in a second. The question we had for everybody was, what are some of the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make early on that could be avoided with your guidance?
Well, I did touch it on a little bit there at the beginning, was not paying themselves. This is a huge, huge issue for so many entrepreneurs because, yes, it is so common because we're so focused on our businesses. We're so focused on growing our business. It's our baby. We want it to grow and thrive, and we forget about ourselves. Like it is, especially I find women struggle to pay themselves and to pay themselves their worth. They think, oh, well, it's okay. I can just make this, you know, I can just go another month without a paycheck. It's not a big deal. No, pay yourself from day one. Even if, you know, I'm a big believer in percentages because as entrepreneurs, our income kind of does this. Yeah, it does. So if you try and say, well, I'm going to pay myself $100 a month, that's really difficult. Whereas if you can say to yourself, 10% of every dollar I bring in is mine to keep. So if I bring in $1, I pay myself 10 cents. It's a lot easier to keep that sustainable rather than trying to hit those hard numbers because sometimes things are going to go sideways. You know, you're going to have a client that just bails on you at the last minute. You're going to have a contract that falls through. You're going to have a rough month. You know, your kid gets sick and you can't work or whatever. You know, your hot water heater bursts and suddenly you're flooded and you can't, you know, deal with it. If you're dealing in percentages, then you can stay on track and on top of it rather than trying to really pinpoint that dollar amount and saying, this is what I'm going to do. So pay yourself a paycheck from day one. Get into that habit because it's a lot harder to shift into that after you've got an established business and you're got so many moving pieces. It's hard to build those habits. So doing it from day one, so important.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you, Jen. I'm off to implement that one as soon as this is done. Next, Maria, would you like to answer the question, what are some of the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make early on that could be avoided with your guidance?
Sure. Not sure why it doesn't switch to me on the camera for this one. I don't know. Can you guys see me or are they seeing Jillian right now? Okay. So anyways, the answer to that question is basically keep it simple. I always go by that rule, the KISS rule. Keep it simple, Sally, I'm going to say. It's actually, you know what it is. But anyways, the simpler it is, the better it is for you. I find a lot of people try to put every single task they're able to do and try to put it in their logo, kind of like a Swiss Army knife, and show all the different flashy things that you can and try to cram it in the tiny little confines of a logo. Keeping it simple, keeping it airy. If your talent is not creating an icon, then just keep it as a simple word mark. Pick a nice font. Keep 1 to 2 fonts, 1 to 2 colors, and be consistent with it. You don't need to change it up all the time. Just select them and then give them their identities and then be consistent with it, with everything you produce. And also give yourself consideration in regards to, okay, who is my target audience? What is my main brand message? What is the main message I want to get out there to everyone? And what are my future business goals? So where do I see myself moving forward? Keep all of these things into consideration when thinking about your branding. But again, keep it simple, keep it clean.
Excellent, thank you. Well, that looks like we have squeezed it in with 4 minutes to go. So thank you very much, ladies. Thank you to Jen, Maria and Laura for joining me. It's been very helpful. And we have put a couple of mentions in the chat of some links. We will have more of those in the email which we send through with the replay. So if you're watching this in replay, you may already have seen them. And for anyone who's watching just now, we will send that out. We'll probably send that out in the next 48 hours or so. We'll get a replay over to everybody. And if anybody has any questions, please contact us all either directly at our own websites, or you can always reply to the email and I'll forward them on to whoever needs it, because I'm sure that we are all happy to help if anyone has any questions.
Absolutely. And one other thing, sorry, Maria reminded me of the other critical mistake people make in their first year, and that is blending your personal and your business money all in one big shmush. So KISS in my world means keep it separate seriously. So always have a separate account for your personal stuff and a separate account for your business stuff, because if they're all playing in the same sandbox, oh my God, I can't keep it straight. You can't keep it straight. Nobody can keep it straight. And when it comes time to like tax time, or God help you if you ever have an audit, oh my gosh, it is going to be a hot mess of scary. So day one, it doesn't have to be a fancy like business bank account, because those are really, really expensive. Just have something separate that is just for business dollars, so that you aren't having it all play in the same sandbox. It gets so messy and confusing, and believe me, it'll save you a heck of a lot of headaches and gray hairs if you just do it from day one.
Excellent, definitely agree with that one. I have done that one, you'll be pleased to hear, Jen. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, ladies. We're going to sign off for now, and as I said, anyone got any questions, feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.